Okay, boys and girls, welcome back to my channel. This is part 2 of this particular Troy built. If you missed the first video, you missed a whole lot of shredded good steel fun. I'm just going ahead and put this back together. I got the new parts for it. I got the new slug. Remember the one from the last video? It was all worn down on one side. I got another washer to go underneath of it, and we're just going to go ahead and put this lever back on. It should only take a second. That washer goes there, the slug goes in this hole, L bolt goes in there, that goes in there like that. Everything should line up. Make sure you put this arm back on here if it came off. This spring comes over to here when we're finished, but for the moment I'm just going to go ahead and bolt this on. That was that old paper thin washer that was no good. You're going to have to stand this thing up. I don't know if you'll be able to see that on camera, but I don't care. It's about to rain, and all I'm doing is putting a washer and a nut. Hold that in place. Make sure that's tight. And we should have movement. We do. Still have a little bit of up and down, but there's not a whole lot you're going to be able to do with that. We took care of a lot of it. Hopefully it's enough to keep that from happening again. And if not, there's not a lot we can do except for maybe do some welding on the deck, raise it up, then grind it back down. This is where the new pulley goes. Let me grab that. So we put a new pulley on. It has a nubbin sticking out the bottom and it's flat on the top. If you don't sure, look at the one next to it. Put that on, bring the bolt up, and it just bolts in place. I don't know if I have the correct, ooh, maybe. And since that has a bearing in it, you can tighten it up and it still spins. And now I just gotta get this wrench back off. Now it still has some movement, and there's not much we can do about that, but it's a heck of a lot better than it was, and hopefully it will keep the belt from coming off. Now this is bent out, remember, this was worn and bent, so I am going to tentatively feed this belt back through here. See, it should not be able to fit in there, so I'm going to go get a hammer and I'm going to beat that in. Then this goes up like this, and this goes back like this. Now that this pulley's been replaced, that's close enough, so I need to go ahead and take that back off. So that I can get that belt inside of there. It comes up like a dick, goes back down, and that goes in there. Now see how that keeper keeps the belt from being able to come out, where this one can wobble itself out. So we're going to bend that one back. Basically, I am just putting the belt, and I didn't put the belt through the right way. That's okay, sometimes this stuff happens. That's why you do it where you can see it. Try this one more time. easy enough. That just goes like that. That goes across the back. It goes around here, and it goes like that. Now, where you keep this keeper is not all that important. All it does is keep the belt from being able to pop off. As long as it's close enough to the pulley but not touching it, that it won't let that belt flop out. That's all you need. So I have it back a little bit because when this comes through like so, this goes on and this goes up to the motor. That's where that goes. Now that cannot come out, where this one still can. So I'm gonna get a hammer and beat that on. You don't need to see that. I'm just gonna bring this back up closer to the pulley. Everything else looks good. If your pulleys don't turn when it's laying on the ground, that's because the blade is actually touching the ground. So don't worry about that. You can always pick it up and it'll spin. But that's it. Here, the deck connection comes through here and goes to here, so it engages the pulley and backs it back off. Everything else looks fine. The only thing left is to put your keeper back on right there, which I'm gonna do. Make sure that it isn't touching anything. It should not be touching the pulley at all, but it should be close enough to keep that belt from banging out. And that's it. I'm gonna bolt that back in place, and I'm gonna go ahead and put the deck back on. If you need a video on that, leave it in the comments, and I'll make a video on how to put the decks on and off. But that's it. We're gonna test drive it. Okay guys, this is why when you're putting things back together, you check everything. Now hopefully you can tell, this is the new pulley. This is the frame right here, and they're touching. I can push that down with my hand, but when I let it go, that pulley is touching the frame. Now that's in the utmost position on the deck. So that's one reason that that pulley would be messed up. Now most people do not use the top position on the deck. They usually use about midway. That's in the top position. They usually use it in second or third height, which obviously then is fine. But this pulley is touching right here. Now that these pieces have been replaced and they're in the proper position, and there's nothing you could do about that except possibly take a grinder and grind some of that away. Okay, I'm actually going to try lowering the front of the deck by unscrewing the bolt in the front and see if I can drop it just a little bit. Otherwise, I'm going to tell the customer, and I'm going to block this position on here with something to remind them not to try to go up there. Okay, everything's put back together. The deck's back on, the belt's back on. Let's give it a shot. When the belt's on correctly, you should not smell any smoking. You should not feel any vibration. And all you can do is drive it around, turn it on, engage the blades, turn them back off, turn them back on, turn them back off a few times. Make sure everything's set where it's supposed to be, and make sure that the belt's not coming off. seems to be working just the way it's supposed to. Belt's in one piece. It's not smelling. I don't smell anything burning, dragging. Before I turned on the camera, I reached under there. I put the deck all the way down. I moved all 4 pulleys, the 2 spindle pulleys, as well as the one I replaced in the other one. It's possible that that pulley got messed up because it was up against the frame. Now it's not. I loosened the bolt on the front. That is this connecting rod right here that holds up the front of the deck. I loosened that to drop the deck down enough to clear that from the frame so that it wouldn't hit anymore now that the new pulley's in and in place. The belt's in place. Everything looks good. Everything looks like it's fine. I engaged it 3 or 4 times before I actually turned on the camera, and then engaged it 3 or 4 more times. Everything seems to be in good shape. If you see any smoking coming off of it, that's because the valve cover on the front is leaking. We did a valve job on it last week, and I'm going to pull that off. That's why all that smoke's coming out of there. It's got a little drip of oil coming right down on the muffler, and the muffler just got hot and it's burning it off. So I'm going to go ahead and take that back off. If you didn't see the video, check it out. It was just a few videos ago where I did a valve adjustment on this. So I'm just going to let that cool off. I'm going to pull that valve cover. I'm going to put a new sealer in there and let it set up overnight to stop any dripping. And he'll be good to pick this thing up tomorrow. I still do not know what caused the shredding of that steel keeper. I'm feeling like that pulley was hitting the frame, and so it got hot, and that's how it melted. If the steel got hot enough, it could have warped it, could have melted it, who knows. But all I can do when I put a machine back together is do my best to find the problems that I can find. In this case, it was the worn out slug on the engagement lever, the missing washer because it wore down so thin that it wasn't there anymore, the wear on the deck. It still has some movement. He's just trying to get a few more years out of this deck. Honestly, he probably should get a new deck. And that problem can be fixed if you were to just take that bolt out once a year and slather some grease in there. That's all it is. Steel on steel wears, it vibrates. If you just grease it once a year, you wouldn't have that issue. So he's going to have to replace that deck at some point. I bought the pulley, the slug, and a few other things that it needed this morning. It cost me 67 bucks, I think, to replace all those broken parts. And we're back in business. So hopefully he gets a few more years out of this thing. And all I can do is test it a few times. I engaged and disengaged the blades, 8-10 times. And the belt's not going anywhere. It's not working its way off. I adjusted the keepers on the pulleys back. I used a hammer and whacked that one back. Everything else looks like it's supposed to be where it's supposed to be. So let's hope he doesn't have to bring it back anytime soon. He's an old customer of mine from, I don't know, a year and a half ago is the last time I seen him. Hopefully he doesn't have to bring this thing back to me for another couple of years. It's always good to see customers, but hopefully he won't have to come back and see me. So there you go. It seems to be fixed. Thanks for stopping by. See you soon. Oh, and hit the subscribe button. 98% of my viewers, 10,000 this week, are not subscribed. Hit the subscribe button. I'm just trying to reach 1,000 so I can monetize. That's all. I'm at 500. Hit the subscribe button. Do me a favor. It doesn't cost anything. Help me to get to 1,000. See you soon.